Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm really excited to be a part of this and super honored to share a bit of my culture. Um, I am Luna Contreras, the chef behind Cello, which forms part of the Dame Collective. It involves many concepts, micro restaurants, and I have been with them for 18 months. And I have been in this home for a year. Welcome to the old Beast Space here in Northeast Portland. And with that, I just want to take a quick few seconds to acknowledge the passing of Naomi Pomeroy, who is an integral and inspirational human being for the Portland community and beyond. It has been an honor to be in this space for so long, and it's been truly inspiring. Today, I wanted to focus on nixtamalization and also the antojito from the state of Oaxaca called a Tlayuda. And I'm from the West Coast, from the state of Jalisco, from Guadalajara. It's the top three biggest cities in Mexico as far as population go, and that's where I grew up. My grandmother had a small restaurant, so when I was growing up as a kid, I would tag along with her wherever she went, basically to stay out of trouble. Because my mom taught in rural parts of Mexico, so she was sent on assignments for 3 to 6 months. Sometimes I wouldn't see my mom, so therefore my grandmother was my caretaker, which and and in doubt and ended up being what I do today. So with that, let's start focusing on what maize is. So I was very lucky to source a lot of organic maize from the state from the country of Mexico. We have an amazing purveyor here in Portland, Oregon. Three Sisters Nixtamal. They're in Southeast Portland. All of their products can be found at local retailers like Seasons, Whole Foods, even Fred Meyer. So I was able to get some dried maize from them, white corn, yellow corn, and heirloom blue corn. Um, and I'll be talking about what nixtamalization is about that. So let's get going in that. So nixtamalization is the treatment of utilizing an alkaline product. And to this treatment, usually, let me grab a quick pen. Our ancestors, I'm an Aztec. That's I'm 25% Aztec. And this process began, and it can be noted, and I've shared some links to when it first started, which was 1200 to 1500 BC. And it is unknown where it originally began, but it can be traced back to the coast of Guatemala. And through this, the natives would go out and forage dried corn, parts like this. And to start the nixtamalization process, you just take dried corn and then you add your cal. That's what it's in Spanish. And it's just, there's different methods that can be used to get that alkaline process. But Three Sisters was super sweet and gave me some of their alkaline. And to this, I'm only going to add a couple tablespoons. And it doesn't matter the ratio, to be honest, because all you want to do is steep this dried maize until it becomes very soft. And for that process, it might take 2 to 3 times. For that, you just need water. And you steep it. That is basically all you do. And obviously corn is an integral part of Mexican cuisine and our culture because it's what our natives had to forage. And it's as a Mexican American, there was a lot of food insecurity growing up, you know. So how many maize, tortillas, any masa product was an integral part of our diet. But for that, you do need you do need vitamin B3. Otherwise, you could develop something called pellagra. And actually, this hominy process was very popular during the Depression era here in the States, especially in the southern states. And I learned a lot about researching, especially for this class, about this. Where the Native Americans would use chunks of limestone to start this process to soften the corn. And it wasn't until the Aztecs and the Mayans started adding the cal, the alkaline, which is what I know as which was that product that I shared with you. But there's many other options to reach this process. So once that process gets going, you steep it for a couple hours, and then you strain it, and then you repeat this process approximately about 2 to 3 more times. And what that does is it softens the corn, and you're able to process it and grind it. And once you grind it, you end up with masa. So Three Sisters was so sweet, and they gave me corn, 3 different types of heirloom corn from that they do, and their product is amazing. I've worked with them for about 6 years, and they gave me each one of their products post like from what it would be, where it would be foraging out in the fields, taking the corn off the cob, which is a strenuous process. And this process is actually becoming lost in Mexico. And that's because of the rise of brands and obviously capitalism, brands like Oaxaca. And what they've done is they've actually put a lot of businesses that have done this native process out of business, basically. And they've been like, I'm gonna hand you this maseca. All you have to use is add some water and add a little bit of fat and some salt. And then you can smash that up and make a tortilla. And that's been done due to the rise of obviously inflation, the rise of labor costs, and because it's so easy to do. So a lot of these natives and my grandmother went through this entire process, and I can tell you that it would take her probably an entire week. And it takes a lot of corn to get a small amount of masa. And I've tried many times to do this, and I do this for work, and that it is a very difficult process to achieve the right balance so that you can grind and find smooth masa. And after I have my little pot with the outline, my dried maize, I've shared with you, this is hominy, which is what becomes after you process this with the alkaline product. And at this point, you can eat it. You can make grits out of it, which is very popular, as I said, through that Depression period. And it slowly became to decline because other methods were just much more favorable. I'm gonna set this quickly aside. Now, I don't have a grinder here, but after steeping the dried maize, softening the corn, having it become hominy, then you can add it to soups, to stews, grind it, make grits, add cream, add whatever you like, some stock. It's basically like what the Europeans did for their grits. After you grind it, you end up with masa, and that's basically what we know of as tortillas, corn tortillas. Now, where I'm from, in the state of Jalisco, I didn't know what a flour tortilla was. Um, and that's because that came from European settlers. Obviously, Mexico, as we all know, was colonized by multiple parties, not just the French, but the Spanish. And we have had a rich culture of different individuals, Polish individuals, like bring in cuisine to the northern states of Mexico, Indian natives that have brought all the basically what is the shawarma, what we know of now as al pastor. And basically, once you reach the masa, and I'll show you how to use. I brought this handy dandy tortilla press. This thing is about 50 pounds. I purchased this from Hacienda, and Hacienda offers a lot of products. Hacienda.com, a lot of masa products, a lot of tortilla presses. I highly recommend the products. Only because they're really well made. They're gonna last you a lifetime. And it's important to have a tortilla press that presses evenly on both sides. One that's not gonna corrode on you, and one that you can just use for everything, to make borraches, to make sopes, anything your heart desire. I think that's the beauty of masa. It's like Play-Doh, so it can be formed to any shape that you want. So I have this massive tortilla press here. And I'm gonna show you the easiest way for you to press tortillas. Let me just grab something real quick. Now you're probably thinking, Luna, why do you have a plastic bag? Well, my grandmother, while I was growing up, she would save all the plastic bags from her journeys to the centros. And I remember going with her, and she had her little basket at home with all these plastic bags. And I think that's what we all ended up doing. I'm not gonna throw these away. I save these because I can reuse them. I can wash them and reuse them. So any kind of plastic bag that you have at home, it's a perfect vessel to use to press anything, because it's not gonna stick. So I have these handy dandy Joyce Chen scissors, which I've been using ever since my time at Chez Panisse. And I'm just gonna cut a shape the size of this tortilla press. And this can be used for anything, for making empanadas, making gorditas. Here I have one down and one on top. And for cello at the restaurant, we usually use about 300 grams of organic heirloom masa for Tlayudas. And you just press it down in the center, and you apply the pressure. The most pressure that you apply will become the thinnest tortilla. And a Tlayuda is a circular, huge tortilla, about 12 to 15 inches big. And it's all done on a comal, which is basically a griddle. And in Oaxaca, I researched a lot about Oaxaca, and I fell in love with the Tlayuda for many reasons, because any item that you can forage can be added to it. I think that's the beauty about, in the process, about us as human beings, how we continue to move onward in what we can utilize from our gardens, you know. And I've worked with Growing Gardens, which is a local nonprofit here in town, and what they do for their work as well, which is similar to what one of my mentors, which was Alice Waters, did in Berkeley, which was community gardens. And I believe that these practices are being lost due obviously to capitalism, to mass production of ingredients, and obviously we see ingredients rising up in costs. So you press your masa, and I flip it every other couple times because I want to get a circular shape. I don't want an oval shape. If I wanted an oval shape, it would be a huarache, or in the shape of a sandal. So here I can show you that I reached that goal. And to masa, traditionally you add a fat, but that fat obviously can be anything that is to your diet. You know, you don't have to use lard. There are vegetable fats, there's olive oil, there's butter, there's water. Just adding some hot water mixed with some salt, that'll do the trick. I personally tend to lean to a more vegetarian lifestyle, even though I do cook a lot of proteins. So I did not use lard for this. I used water, vegetable stock, and a little bit of butter, and which made my masa super pliable. So now that I have this shape, you're thinking, how am I going to have this huge griddle in my house? But that's the beauty of the folks in Oaxaca, the tortilleras. So I'm going to set this little guy aside. And when I first started learning about Tlayudas, I started doing pop-ups around town here in Portland. And I would purchase them, and they would be flown in from the state of Oaxaca. And I wanted to research as much about it on how to get the thinness. And as you can see in my tortilla here, it's hard to see, but it's fairly thin. Now I did this earlier. And that's the cool thing about masa. You can do this ahead of time and freeze them, and then you'll have lovely little treats ahead of time. So after it's cooked, basically in a comal, you end up with this large circular shape that once topped, it'll get back and get cooked again. So it becomes even crispier. With that, I'm gonna set these aside. I'm gonna come back to this. And I want to talk about a couple books that are really important to me. They've been super inspirational to me, and I wanted to share them with you because they've taught me a lot on not just the practices of my ancestors, but on a way to move forward and continue these practices so that they can be taught to future generations. And all these books can be purchased at your local bookstore. Obviously, you could go online and purchase them as well. That is up to you. But I wanted to share this masa cookbook by Jorge Gaviria. And it's from Chronicle Books. And my wife used to intern for Chronicle Books years ago. And now this masa cookbook will basically tell you all the shapes, all the different little antojitos that you can create with masa. Techniques, recipes, reflections, ideas, thoughts, nostalgic memories. It's a great book. Highly recommended. There's Mexico, the cookbook, and you know from Faydon, they're gonna give you a good book. It covers for 1,000 recipes that you can create at home using products from your grocery store. And if those products are not available at your grocery store, most of the time now you can't find them online or at your local Hispanic grocery store. Extremely good book, very inspirational. Like I said, as my vegetarian lifestyle, though I do eat meat and I cook a lot of proteins, but Cello is seen as a vegetable forward restaurant due to embracing the practices of foraging and utilizing the bounty of the seasons. And I think that's the beauty of Portland, Oregon. We are in tune with what is happening in our farmers markets, in our local activism, in our local politics, because we all want to create a society that can be for all and that we can all move forward. So this book is from the same author that I shared from before, Margarita Carrillo Arronte. And it covers a great amount of vegetarian recipes that you can create at home. There's a lot of chefs out there that I think you could get books from, but these are some good ones. This Mexican home kitchen cookbook said, I believe, a staple in your home. And you know, I love all types of cuisines. I love Italian food, Indian food, Chinese food, Vietnamese food, Korean food. I love all food, and I love learning about the practices of ancestry. Even European folks, you know, like my partner has Scottish background. So she brings in a lot of items that I had not heard of before because some of her family lives in England, like Marmite. I didn't know what that was, so I learned about that. But this is a good one for home. It's a lot, I think, more approachable for everyone. Hope that's an okay word to use. And someone that's been an inspirational figure in my life. And I spent a year in her kitchen when I was doing my apprenticeship when I was about 21 years old. And that's Alice Waters. And she has a restaurant in Berkeley where I moved from here, Portland, Oregon. And this is her vegetables cookbook. And it's an essential for your home because it'll just cover all the vegetables of the season. If you're ever in a pinch and don't know what to do, here's this book. And she does amazing work for the gardens, for the kids in the community in the East Bay. So anyway, now that I've talked about those books, and thank you for letting me vent about those, let's go back to our masa and our little preparation of demo. So I have this acolyte here for a demonstration, and I'm gonna set this aside. And I took some heirloom beans. I got these from Rancho Gordo. You can find the products, and if you're here from Portland, Oregon, you can find them at Providor, Wellspring Market, higher end markets, and they produce beautiful heirloom greens. They're from out in Northern California. And what I did was added a little bit of epazote a few days ago to the water, and onion, and a couple of dried chipotle morita peppers, just for a little and earthiness. And chipotle morita is a pepper. There's a few different types of chipotle, morita and mango, and they're both very different. And I'm talking about those, and I should have shared them with you. But to make this pinto beans, you don't. Basically, you're making refried beans, but I didn't fry them in any lard. And I think again, depending on your lifestyle and your dietary restrictions, you do not have to fry them. You know, I barely do that. I add a little bit of olive oil and I reduce them to the thickness that I want. And at any point, if they become too thick, I just add a little broth, or a little water, and season accordingly. But to all my beans, I add fried Mexican oregano. And you can find this at any grocery store. And it just adds a little herbaceous kind of oomph. And my grandmother had a big tub when I was growing up, and she would add it to everything. For pozole, for menudo, for tacos, for tostadas. So it's a good herbaceous writer, which I have some right here. So I have my beans. And I have my Tlayuda. But I'm gonna show you, I have this griddle back here, and it's gonna cooperate with me today. I didn't want to utilize too much gas because the noise in this space gets very loud. And also because apparently gas produces a lot of carbon monoxide. So I did bring an induction burner for the rest of the demo. But all you have to do is you take that masa and tortilla and you lay it on your griddle. Now, that one wasn't that hard. Sometimes they do break, and that's okay. You can ball it back up, reshape it, redo that process. And what I'm gonna utilize, some other ones that I had before. So they've been dried further and they'll be just quicker for me to share with you today. I'm gonna grab a cutting board. So Patty was so kind to harvest some items for me. Much like this tromboncino squash. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, did you like, what are you gonna do with this, Luna? I think it's insane. But I do that. So I'm gonna utilize a little bit. Okay. And this is where your creativity comes into play. So I'm gonna do this Tlayuda, how we do it here at the restaurant. So I've cut it into smaller shapes. And you know, I watched Kathy Wims's demonstration from last year. And she shared the mandolin, and it's a great tool. You just have to be careful not to nick yourself. But it's perfect for so many uses. And if you're self-conscious about utilizing a knife with your knife skills or anything, and it just gets the job done quicker. And we in restaurants use it so much. So I'm gonna use ribbons. I'm gonna do ribbons for Tlayuda. And this we're gonna go on raw. I'm not gonna cook these. I obviously have more than what I can do with. So I foresee how many in squash soup, how many squash and tomato soup, just lots of goodies that I can do for food prep at home. I'm gonna do a little bit more. Just being careful. Now, when I was growing up, my grandmother didn't have this. So she did everything by hand, and her specialty was not Tlayudas. I fell in love with Tlayuda because there's only one Tlayuda spot where I was from in Guadalajara, or in Zapopan. That was the Colonia where I grew up in, and that's where we could get them. And it was kind of like a pizza, and usually it is described as a pizza, you know. And you can top it off with whatever. And that's why I wanted to share this one with you, because it highlights what we can do, what we can find at our local farmers markets. Now, so Patty harvested some eggplant. I love eggplant. And it's become more known in Mexico. So with this little eggplant, I'm just gonna cut it into dice. Half it, go across, and do cubes. And we're gonna top our Tlayuda with this eggplant. It's gonna be delicious. And you know, as a Mexican that immigrated to the to the States. I emigrated here when I was about 10 years old. So I learned a lot about hamburgers, pizza, pasta, burritos, so many different types of food. It was daunting, for me as a kid, growing up in America, not knowing the language, it was scary. But I knew that I had my grandmother always looking after me. So we have this eggplant, we have this beautiful poblanos. I'm just gonna cut these into rajas. So raja just means strip. Now, I'm gonna smash this down a little bit. Side. That way I can remove this membrane. Usually the membrane is what's the spiciest. If you like spice, leave it on. I'm removing it because I feel it just looks nicer. Try my rajas. Trying to be as clean here as possible. So that I can have this sorbet, guys. And all these products came from the demonstration garden. Which basically shows what you could find at your local farmer's market. And I stop at 2 farmers markets every single week. One, because I need herbs. So I got my peppers, I've got my eggplant. And I want to quickly talk about these herbs that come from Erie Farm. Put my Tlayuda over. Now they have an herb called papicha. For the state where I'm from, we have a pasote. We also have papalo. But papicha, I don't remember growing up with this. So I researched what papicha was. Because Mexico is just so many regions. And natives would eat their food or take a bite out of their food. And this happens to now, obviously, basically, when you're having stew, soup, tacos. So you take a bite out of your taco and you take a bite out of your papicha. And it's got an herbaceous, minty, bright flavor. And it acts as a digestive. So I started using it in my cooking. So we'll be adding a little bit of this to when I saute these items together. Now, Erie Farms also has purslane, and I grew up a lot with purslane. My grandmother made these shrimp cakes. I can picture her right now making the shrimp cakes in her kitchen. And I would just be in a corner sitting in a little stool. And one of the reasons my grandmother was influential in my life was because she understood me for who I was. None of my other family members did that. I didn't start this hormone replacement therapy process to transition as a trans person, as a trans woman, until the pandemic hit. And I think the pandemic was an alarming situation. It was kind of a reset button for a lot of us. And made us really refocus on what we wanted to do. Anyway, she would have purslane and what I know as verdolagas. 2 soups, 2 stews, tostadas, 2 tacos. And it was just a bright, acidic kind of little taste. And it's beautiful. And it's also utilized a lot in Korean food. And I just learned that because I had a couple of Korean folks come in and they're like, "You use this stuff?" I was like, "Yes, I grew up with this." So, ooh. And we shared stories. So let me just move this a little bit. Let's move onward. So I've got my eggplant, my herbs, and I got some heirloom tomatoes and a little peach. So this is what I always think when you can have fun. And I think when you're creative and you make food, it's a lot of things. It's always nostalgic. It's always the memories and things that you were taught as a kid, and then you're just either passing them along to your kids or just they make you happy, you know? All these things make me happy. And it's kind of like in kitchens, there's always a station that is referred to as the arts and crafts station. Basically where you play with shapes and sizes. So with these, I'm just gonna cut this into chunks. So I want my tomatoes. I want to taste the sweetness of the tomato, the ripeness of the tomato, slightly hinted by the touch of the oven. I do have my oven on. As I said, I have this griddle on, and I do have an induction burner. I'm just gonna cut one more. And this is where nothing should be judged. It's just your own creative process. I think that's the beauty about cooking. It's a place where you can be free and really just be yourself, where no one's gonna judge you. And you can just dive in and be in your own head and just make food that just reminds you of those good memories when you were a little kid. So I am gonna utilize this pizza. I don't even know what it's called, but I found it and I know it's utilized for the pizzas. I'm sorry. But I'm gonna take this Tlayuda. As you can see, it's ready. And normally it would be done on coals. But I was using this gas griddle, which I'm gonna shut off now because the pans are off and all I have this exhaust fan. And I'm gonna bring my beans over. But I want to talk quickly about another process of Tlayuda, which is asiento. Now, asiento is a fat. And obviously fat gives you earthiness. Obviously, I like to make my Tlayudas vegetarian friendly and vegan friendly. So I just use one process. I don't use lard for this. I take a bunch of garlic cloves and I steep them in olive oil until they're really soft. And I process them in a food processor until it becomes paste. And this is what I layer on my Tlayuda. And that is this paste right here. So that's about a tablespoon and a half for this 13-inch Tlayuda. And just use a spatula, rub it around. If you like more oomph, add more. Which is what I'm gonna do. Now, a Tlayuda usually has his asiento. And it usually has black beans. But I received and wanted to use this pinto beans because they're a little lighter. And they'll really highlight the colors of what was harvested for this demonstration. So at this point, you basically treat it pizza. Now, Tlayuda has been around for a long time. There's actually debate that it came before the pizza. Because all the natives in Mexico, for if you're Aztec, Mayan, Inca, Huichol, Otomi, we all had our different go-tos as far as food wise. I have this nice layer of beans, and it doesn't have to be perfect, Just lay it on there. You have fun with it. I'm gonna move this forward and talk about the cheese. Now, we're very lucky to have an artisanal cheesemaker here in Portland metro area. Well, actually, they're down in Salem, but they're Don Froilan. And there's a cute mini documentary from Watch Todos, and you can find it on YouTube, the process of this. And it shares the process. It's similar to just what the Italians were doing with mozzarella. Known in other parts of Mexico as quesillo, it's queso Chihuahua, and it just becomes a regional thing. And a lot of different parts of Mexico add colorants to it, like annatto seeds. Now, annatto is funky triangular red-shaped spice that grows in bushes. And when dried, you can make a paste out of it. And in the state of Yucatan and Quintana Roo, it's highly used over there, especially for chicken. So I've shredded this cheese, and it's usually in strips. I'm just gonna layer it on my Tlayuda. So what I'm gonna do next, I set this to the front, and I'm gonna bring my induction burner over. I wanna saute these veggies. I have my induction burner. Now, I'll just quickly share about this product. So this is Finex with really heavy pots and cast iron products. They're from here in Portland, Oregon. It's Portland made, but they work in induction, they work over fire, they work under gas. It's beautiful, beautiful, long lasting. It's gonna last you a lifetime. So I love to use this on induction. Little olive oil. I'm gonna add my eggplant. Gonna turn up the heat. It's hard to see. This is it. Obviously, if I take this off, it's gonna start beeping at me, nagging me to put it back on. I'm gonna salt this really quickly. A little bit more olive oil. Just gonna take my spatula. Just occasionally monitor this eggplant. And now I can focus the rest. Now, traditionally, Tlayudas are made with a protein. Usually carne asada. And it's layered on your Tlayuda, and the Tlayudas are usually flipped, where they become kind of like a quesadilla. What I'm gonna do with this after it's done, I'm gonna pop it in the oven. So it'll be a flat presentation. So I think it'll show us all just the beauty of all the products we have. So I have an avocado. A lot of people don't. Well, I don't know. I think a lot of folks know how to cut an avocado. Just cut it in half, roll around, and you shake it, and take the top off. Now at this point, I always take the bottom end of my avocado there. Gives me a half.
And I'm just gonna fan this later on. You can obviously do this in its little hot. So I'll set that aside, getting all my meats done. Toward the end, I'm gonna add a little bit of fresh oregano. And obviously finish with really high quality olive oil. And I love olive oil because it's an ingredient that I've learned to love as a Mexican American, you know. It wasn't available when I was growing up. We had a corn oil or vegetable oil. And it's just more robust. So here, I'm gonna try and move this down. I have my Tlayuda. I'm gonna take all my little ribbons of squash. And this is where you can play. This is what I was talking about, arts and crafts. I'm gonna layer this down. Just create a base for the rest of my ingredients. Because this will really just shows the beauty of this Tramontino squash that was harvested by the lovely Patty. Thank you, Patty. And then we can top it off with whatever else we'd like. All right, I'll utilize these for later. So I have my base. And obviously we season as we go. That's what I was talking. In professional kitchens, I've been doing this for 22 years. So season as you layer. Oil, lots of salt. Fried oregano. Get us back that earthiness. Get that nostalgic memories and dreams come out. We're here a little eggplant, trying to get some color. We don't want too much color. We're going for an al dente. Fine. An al dente is like, you don't want it too soft, but you don't want it too hard. You want it at that right medium point where you feel like you can really taste all of the sweetness and all of the elements of the ingredient. Now I'm gonna add my peppers. I would say you can add onion. Or any ingredient that you want. I've never tried this with beets, but it might be kind of yummy. Definitely not something that I grew up eating, but delicious. And I think that's the beauty about harvesting the bounty of the seasons, you know? As human beings, we adapt. And we've adapted for generations to our surroundings, to wherever we went. You know, I adapted when I came to the States. I learned what Lunchables was. I learned about different types of cuisines that were more obscure in Mexico. Korean food, and as I said, I love Japanese food, and was able to go to Japan this past November, and my mind was just blown. The traditions there, the care that was taken into all of the processes, and it reminded me a lot of home. I think that's so important, that those practices are still key and important. Now, am I gonna take this peppers too far? Just slightly so they're a little soft. And I'm gonna shut my induction burner off. And I'll just see if I can share this with you. But they're slightly translucent. I'm gonna set this little rag here, put my pan right there. We're gonna start layering. Now, my love of vegetables came and started in Berkeley. You know, it was difficult growing up to understand what seasonality was. You know, as a kid, I just don't know. So this is why programs in schools are so important. And like I said before, the work that Oregon Gardens is doing, it's outstanding. And what I'm able to do right now, it's amazing because I can share what we can do to adapt to changes. And we can see those changes due to global warming. And you know, Patty, who harvested these items from me, was talking about this OPB chat about the gas in kitchens and carbon monoxide and adapting to induction. It's cleaner for the environment. It's cleaner for us. As you can see, we can create those processes without the need for gas. Obviously, those processes are better outdoors, not indoors. So I have my eggplant, my peppers, my squash, my cheese, my beans, my garlic, my beautiful organic corn tortillas. And we're gonna finish this off with some heirloom tomatoes. And the placement is whatever you like. You don't even have to do this. But if you ever feel inspired to do this, go to your local grocery store, get a small bag of masa, and have some fun at home. You don't have to recreate this nixtamalization process at home. You can find this masa from Three Sisters Nixtamal, and they're at the PSU Farmers Market every Saturday. They have their tortillas, they have their masa, and as I said, it's available in new seasons and at other grocery stores. I keep some of my papicha, my purslane handy. So here we have it all aired, and it looks like a pizza, you know, it's beautiful. And traditionally, this would go right on a comal. Charcoal's going, and that creates the crisp texture. And obviously, this kitchen where we don't have access to a grill or to charcoal, this griddle works perfect. So I'm gonna pop this in the oven, and I just want to chat about a couple other things, but this will be ready in about 8 minutes. So yes, you'll see a pizza peel because it's the easiest vessel for me to utilize at this point. And that's that little buddy. I've been saying that for a long time. So I'm gonna place this in the convection oven here, space. And that should be ready in about, yeah, like I said, 8 minutes. So at this point, I'm gonna start gathering my purslane. And usually the thick stalks of this, you can blanch. By blanching, you just have a pot with water, you bring it up to a boil, you add a little bit of salt. You drop your purslane in, and you bring it on and ice it.
but we're gonna add it raw. It's gonna be one of the final steps toward Tlayuda. I'm just gonna pick a little bit of the stems from this papicha. And I purchased these herbs. I live in St. John's in North Portland. At the farmer's market in St. John's, I was able to get all these herbs. So I, like a creature of habit, will go there every single Saturday. Then I go down to the PSU market and I get the rest of the items that I need for the restaurant. So I don't like to obviously get products from mass producers or commercialized vendors, you know. It's important to keep our farmers on the field doing what they've done for hundreds of years. I feel that these practices are slowly deteriorating. And you know, as an Aztec surrounded by corn and the massive corn industry here in the United States, it's a tough one, you know. Corn is huge. It's used in everything. Cat litter, you know. And it's just become so ultra processed that we are forgetting about just the basics, I think. So I'll quickly talk about a couple hot sauces, and I'm sorry, yes, I'm gonna talk a little bit about the business, sorry. So there's a couple hot sauces, and obviously in Mexican food, I grew up as a kid in my grandmother's food, and I believe a lot of Mexican chefs and cooks don't add a whole lot of spice to their food. There is some oomph, but it's not overpowering. I think that that's why we always have so many different condiments around the table. Think like the Italian table, you know, think like the French table. You're sharing it. So I have an herby serrano, sweet habanero, and a fiery chipotle. And I think with spice levels, it varies in individuals. Some people don't like spice. I like mild spice. Sometimes I'll go for all of it if I want it, but it's not necessary. I also made a couple sauces from ingredients found at the farmer's market earlier this week, or this past Saturday, actually. And a salsa verde is just dried tomatillos, where you can find anywhere now. Pulse them raw. You don't need to cook tomatillos. You said raw garlic, raw onion, cilantro. If you want to vary it, you can add basil to it. It doesn't have to be cilantro. Because I know some folks don't like the taste. Sometimes if cilantro is mass produced, it tends to have this soapy flavor to it, soapy attitude. And I think that that comes in if you're very sensitive to that. But with those ingredients, maybe a pepper, an Anaheim pepper, just any pepper to add a little bit of it. And one of the sauces that my grandmother made was salsa quemada. She would roast all the vegetables, tomatoes, garlic, tomatillos, onion, and she would add 4 to 5 different types of dried Mexican peppers. She would just toast them on a comal. She would do this all on the same comal, something like that I have here. A comal is essential in Mexican cuisine because that's what we had. Growing up, we had hots, and we set up the charcoals outside. What barbacoa started as, just the pit roasting, the griddle, or any vessel that would just be flat so that we could cook on. Limited resources. And then you grind it in a pestle and mortar, and you create your salsa. And all you have to do is add water. Water was the thickener. Growing up, obviously, stocks were not an integral part of what I was growing up with. It only came after boiling. My grandmother would boil, obviously, a pig head or chickens, and that would be stock. and it was refined by the French. So the French gave us a lot of different techniques, which beautiful slow roasting processes and ovens. And that's what I learned as a cook growing up. So I adapted all these processes. You know, we adapt, like I said, we adapt ourselves to all this, everything that we learn. And we take, I feel, what will inspire us. And again, that's the beauty of us as human beings, you know? We're all like in the States here, and the beauty of it, especially here in Portland, Oregon, it's a community. It's so many different types of people. And I've met so many individuals from different types of cuisines. I've learned so much. And I'm like, do you think it would be bad if I utilize this ingredient? And I think if there's a connection, I think it's okay, you know? I think it's totally okay to utilize ingredients from elsewhere because there are similarities in the processes. As we've all just grown, you know? We all came from the same mother, I suppose, the same earth. We've just all evolved and gone our different ways through our own like processes and affections to what we harvest. This has actually been one of the few times that I've been able to talk about my love for Mexican cuisine in a chat in a long time. So it was very difficult for me to like think of an antojito that inspired me. And obviously my grandmother is so inspirational to me because she would just call me mija, you know, and my mom would call me mijo, and that's okay, you know. I'm used to being misgendered, it doesn't matter. But my grandmother taught me everything that I know about Mexican food. And it's what I do. It's what I named the restaurant after her, Cello. So it's all nostalgic memories that I think about going back to her holding my hand, going to the centros, the markets, getting everything, putting everything in a basket, just like how we do it today. But those, I think, processes can be lost, you know, and I feel that all those processes are getting lost to our, it just depends on the classes. And I hate to say that word, but you know, like middle class America, we can access all these the farmers markets, but food insecurity is a huge part of our country. You know, a lot of Americans just live on grits, which is why I chose maize, because it was used in the Great Depression. And obviously things go out of, you know, not favor, but they just become not popular. All these trends, you know. I love grits too, by the way. I love polenta. So I have these beautiful little flowers, which will be used to garnish our Tlayuda. These are beautiful, you know. I think when you create and you're inspired, anything that you do is just an interpretation of your view. I think it should be kind of a nurturing experience, you know. So I'm gonna check on my Tlayuda real quick.
And while she's doing that, I'm just going to say, if anybody has questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat.
2 more minutes.
Also, those nasturtiums are also from the demonstration garden.
They are, you know, I didn't request these nasturtiums, and when Patty brought them, they're so beautiful. That's why I love working with the farmers here in Portland, Oregon. There's a beautiful urban farm here in Coley. Now, this space,
Side yard farms.
Side Yard Farms, yes. Now, this space is in Northeast 30th Avenue, so I've had a relationship with Stacy for years. She's known me from the Bay Area. Before I moved up here, before I started my whole HRT process, and it's only about 10 blocks away, maybe 12 blocks, I'm sorry. And she has the best flowers, in my opinion, but these are really nice. So I'm gonna have to tell her. So I get a lot of other herbs from her as well, like papalo. Papalo is, I don't have papalo, but if you ever see it at your farmer's market, it looks kind of like, let me see. It's a little round, kind of clovery looking herb. And it's another digestive, similar to this papicha. The flavor is very similar, but it's used in semitas, which is or from the state of Puebla. And semita is a Mexican sandwich, like a hamburger in a situation. And obviously, flour was brought to us from the Europeans, Mexico. So I'm gonna grab my Tlayuda now. Plate. Now again, I treated, this is a big one. Now the tomatoes are lightly roasted. You can go deep roast. You can go as far as you like. Now, as I said before, normally the presentation of this would be your beans or cheese, a steak or a chicken. And it would be folded over and herbs would be stuffed in. It would be just on a comal. But I wanted to just kind of highlight all the beautiful produce that was harvested. So at this point, you add your purslane. And again, every time that I'll take a bite out of this, it's just gonna take me back to being a little kid. The papicha, I'm just gonna break down. It's really pungent. But I won't have any tummy issues. Now I usually add epazote, and my grandmother taught me this. If you're making beans, whole beans, and if you find epazote, it's always lovely to just add a bunch of that into your beans. So it'll calm all of the, I guess, gas from the beans. That's what I learned from my grandmother, and that's what I still have to do. Every single time I do that. Little bit of dried oregano, some fresh oregano. And I didn't choose an animal protein for this because, like I said, this is how we eat. We didn't adapt, obviously, as human beings to start eating animal proteins until later on when we developed as human beings. That's another story. But here is this little guy. And,
Oh, that's beautiful.
and at this point, here at the restaurant, we hand out scissors. And I actually took that idea from Kathy from Nostrana. And she's been inspirational since I moved to Portland. And I'll just quickly talk about her because I looked at her video twice, and she's taught me a lot in just resilience as a female chef, and keeping Nostrana just moving on for so many years. And I feel that the work that she does is beautiful, and obviously she's been inspirational in some of the technique issues that I use, or some of the technique ideas that I use to in presentation. So obviously they serve their pizzas with scissors because she doesn't want to ruin any of the presentation. So this is what I did. Because the harvest and any items that we forage from our local farmers need to be displayed. They need to be shown and be like, no, like, and this is one of the things that bugs me. And I'm sorry to like continue talking about that, but the St. John's Farmers Market in where I live, it's very close to 2 supermarkets. It's close to a Safeway and to a Fred Meyer. And it's easy to go to those supermarkets than to your farmer's market. But I've actually found that with the inflation of now, with just the grocery store jacking up all over prices, and when it comes to them getting all these products from just that they can just stockpile, that they don't ripen to the right levels,
and they're not done in the right mindset, you know? So I found that the farmer market prices are sometimes below than, and I'm not lying, like, actually, like, I went and purchased some items. I had to go to the grocery store to purchase for an event, and I was like, wow, it's so expensive. And so, you know, stick to your farmers market, support your farmers. And obviously to this, you cut it up into shapes. There's different Mexican cheeses you could add. You can add queso cotija, which is similar to a Parmesan cheese. You could add queso fresco, similar to, we also have ricotta, which is requesón. But queso fresco is similar to a feta. And you can obviously get those at New Seasons or some of the higher end grocers here in town from Del Froilan. And he does amazing product, and he's a super sweet guy. So
Luna, I
Yes.
know we're at the end of our time. I did have a couple
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
questions. Some
Yeah.
people asked about the red peppers, which were, I believe Carmen from the
Yeah.
Demo Garden.
Yes, there were sweet Carmen peppers. And you know, like,
Yes,
right
aren't
around
those gorgeous?
you can find these at your farmer's market, you know? And if you grab you know, like a fresh baguette or something, just rub it with like some garlic clove or some olive oil and roast some of these peppers. Take the skins off and put that on top of your baguette with like a goat cheese or anything. It doesn't have to be a cheese, but the flavors are
Mhm. And you said you had trouble sourcing the epazote. Am I saying
Yeah.
that correctly?
I did.
Where are you usually able to find it?
You can find it at Hispanic grocery stores, but what I found sometimes, and it's just the way it's stored. It's just stored in you know, like the glass containers, and it just kind of melt. It doesn't look good. Actually, I can find it at some of the farmers markets. I like going to the one in St. John's because there's always one Mexican vendor there, which has
Mhm.
all these herbs, and he usually sometimes has the epazote, but didn't have that epazote this time.
And a comment from someone who's from out of the county who said she's not always able to source all of those cheeses in Southern Oregon. We are so fortunate to have that business out of Salem.
Yes, and I think the distribution from them is growing. And you know, like again, I think that this is when it becomes like, how bad do I really want to utilize that product, or what is available to me that I can utilize? So again, I think that adapting to what you have is also okay, you know? I
Mhm.
mean, I do that too at home.
And somebody asked about removing skin from the peppers. You didn't, excuse me, for your dish this evening, but you talked about removing skin if you were to serve it on top of a baguette.
Oh, so what you would do, and you could do this just in your oven, depending on how fancy your oven is. I would just coat these slightly with, you just need an oil. It doesn't have to be an olive oil, just an oil that's has high heat to not burn. Just coat them in oil, put them in a parchment paper or foil. Put them in the oven for maybe 5-10 minutes. You can do them over an open gas flame too, and just toast them like that. Then you put them in a bowl, cover the bowl with saran wrap, and that kind of creates this, you know, humidity process where the skin can just be easily come off, and you can just cut it into strips. There is an alternative that you can find, Mama Lil's peppers. They're great. They're not super pungent peppers, but they're also at grocery stores, kind of like red bell peppers. It's the same situation, but Mama Lil's has
some where they're a little bit more heirloom peppers. You can't find them at some of the stores, but super easy to do this yourself at home. And obviously, you can add any herbs to them and they become more herbaceous.
All right. Well, we really appreciate you taking the time, using our vegetables from the demonstration garden to organize that beautiful snack. And just
Okay.
really, yes, and I love that for us that you also brought in your personal story and your viewpoint on farming, and all of those things are really valuable for gardeners and for the rest of us to understand.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, everybody, and appreciate your attendance.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. Thank you.